The first thing we will now try to determine is what is the swap rate? In other words, what is the fixed rate K such that the value of the fixed leg at the time of trading equals the value of the floating leg. So that's a big question. What is that fixed rate K? We could do one observation to begin with, and that is the value of the fixed leg. We could simplify that a little bit by pulling out the fixed rate we're looking for and keeping the basis point value of the fixed leg. Because in the present value of the fixed leg, the fixed rate was just a constant, so we could pull that out and remove the fixed rate, and that leaves us with this number. So the equation we are trying to solve, what is the present value of the float leg, what is the present value of the fixed leg, we have actually only one unknown, and that is this number. And let's use the letter capital S at time t for the swap rate spanning the period from t0 to tn. We realize that to solve this equation, all we need to do is look at the present value of the floating leg relative to the basis point value of the fixed leg. This is the swap rate that solves this equation. There are a few interesting insights we can harvest already now from the definition of the swap rate. In denominator, we had the present value of the floating leg. And recalling from the previous slide, that was the sum of the discounted forward LIBOR rates. And if we insert that expression and look carefully to what comes out, we can see that the swap rate can also be seen as a kind of weighted average, and now for simplicity keep the assumption of an equal number of payments on the fixed and the floating leg. So you could think of it as a set of weights multiplied by the individual forward LIBOR rates for all of the periods. And those weights turn out to be exactly the coverage of the floating leg multiplied by the notional, should it happen to be varying across the individual periods, multiplied by the discounting factor or zero coupon bond price corresponding to the payment, and measuring all of that relative to the basis point value of the fixed leg. So this is a set of weights. These weights do not actually sum up to 1, but close to 1. And you can think of why is it that they are not exactly 1. And the quick answer is that there can be difference in frequency and conventions on the floating leg and the fixed leg. This interpretation of the swap rate as a kind of an average of all the forward LIBORs have a valuable insight hidden inside of it. So if you think of this curve as the set of forward LIBOR rates for a set of future fixings, and we look at a swap with a given maturity. So let's think of a swap that matures here at Tn and starts at the spot start T0. So then, since you know that it'll be kind of an average, and let's for now assume that all the notionals are the same, then intuitively you should expect the swap rate to be somewhere in between. Exactly where it is we cannot draw just from looking at the graph, but we should expect it to be a kind of average of these. You also get the understanding that if some of the forward rates move, it will have an impact on the swap rate. So let's say that these forward swap rates move up, well then there will be a positive impact to the swap rate, but only by a small fraction, so you should expect the entire swap rate to move up by a little bit, depending on that contribution to the entire swap rate. you could argue that this tells you something about the risk. What is the risk to the swap rate to the forward LIBOR rates in the front? Or we could have done exactly the same for any interval along the curve. We could ask, what is the sensitivity to the swap rate if these sets of forward rates move up or down? And we can gain a lot of insight from that.